G'day legends. As some of you would know, I recently built a recording studio in my garage and I documented the whole process. If you want to see that whole thing, then there is some links in the description below. You can go and check that whole thing out. But in this video, we're going to do a tour of my new studio. I thought it was about time that I showed you around. I've been working in here for maybe the last 6 weeks since we kind of wrapped everything up, and I'm absolutely loving working in this space. So previously, all of my studios have been home studios, but they've been kind of just makeshift using bedrooms, lounge rooms, that kind of thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm a firm believer that you can get great sounding recordings anywhere, as long as you treat your room and you get it set up. But I don't think you have to go and build a commercial studio to get great results. That being said, I'm absolutely stoked to have my own space. Finally, I bought a house and I was able to build my own studio. So basically, that's what we're going to do in this video. Check out my studio. I'm going to show you around, show you all of the gear. If you have any questions about the studio and any of the gear that I'm using, drop it in a comment below and I'll do my best to answer it for you. So I thought we might start off the tour by checking out the live room. This is the space that we built in the garage. So the room I'm in at the moment, this was already a pre-existing room in the house. So that door used to go into the garage, and now we're going to go check out this live room that we built. All right, so this is the live room. I'll do a little lap of the room for you. So we'll come around behind the kit. Now, pro tip, if you go to IKEA and you are buying a lamp, make sure you check the box before you leave and you don't leave with the red lamp. So from looking back here, this is the live room looking towards the control room. And you can see it's a nice space. The camera doesn't really do it justice, especially the one that I'm using here. It doesn't really capture that full wide view. But this room is about 4 meters by 5 meters. It feels great in here. This is definitely my biggest live room that I've had so far, and absolutely love working in here, tracking drums in here, guitars, vocals. It sounds great. In the corner over there is a bit of a makeshift vocal booth, which I'll show you in a minute. And then over here is our wall of amps, which we'll go check out. But basically, this space just feels really great, really nice to work in here. Hardwood floors sound really cool with the drums, and then just all of the panels that we built, rugs on the floor, that little stuff in the corner. It all helps with the acoustic treatment in here. It sounds really great. One thing I haven't done yet is put any clouds up, which is definitely something that I plan to do, but obviously just when time and budget allow. While we're over here at the drum kit, let's have a little chat about what I'm using. So I've got a Ludwig Keystone drum kit. It is a 24-inch by 14-inch bass drum. So really big but short in length. It's really punchy. Love the sound of it. We have a 13 by 9 rack tom and a 16 by 16 floor tom. And for the snare, we've got the Ludwig Black Beauty. Absolutely amazing snare drum. If you just want one snare drum, it honestly is really good. Amazing all-rounder. You can get that awesome ringing sound with a little bit of dampening. You can get a short punchy sound, tunes really low. It's great, great snare drum. My little auxiliary snare on the side here is a 13-inch Yamaha Recording Custom. It is also a brass shell. You can tell that I really love brass drums. Quite a mix up of the cymbals here. We've got some Zildjian 14-inch new beats. Been using these for a really long time. Really happy with how they sound. But I think I would like to try some Ks, some Zildjian Ks at some point. My left crash at the moment is the Byzance 19-inch medium fin from Meinl. Nice sounding cymbal. For the ride cymbal, a 22-inch pure alloy medium ride. This is also from Meinl. And our second crash, I bought this on a whim off of just Facebook Marketplace, and I absolutely love this cymbal. Would love to get a full set of these at some point. The HHX Complex Thin Crash. This is a 19-inch, and my goodness, it is a stunning cymbal. I absolutely love that. Definitely want to get a full set of those at some point. Cymbals are just so expensive, man. And then we also have the Rec 17-inch Inferno Dark China cymbal. Rec are an Australian company, and this is a cool little China. Sounds great. Not sure if you can see that down there, but DW9000 double kick pedal and the DW5000 hi-hat stand. The rest of my hardware is Pearl hardware. Now, pretty much up until this week, I was using the Loughton snare mic and the Loughton tom mics. I think they are awesome. So just because you're seeing these on here now does not mean I do not use those. I literally just swapped them over for a session just to get a bit of a different sound and to revisit these because it's been a while since I've used the MD421s. And as you guys know, I think these sound really good on toms, but I absolutely hate the cymbal bleed that they give you. But if you can work around that bleed, you can get a really great sound out of the 421s. They're renowned for a reason. A little bit of a snare mic combo today, the Telefunken M80, and then taped to that is the AKG C451B. Really cool combo. As I said before, I had the Loughton snare mic on there, and I find the Loughton a really, really nice sounding snare mic. It's a little bit smoother, and if you like a little bit more of an aggressive edge to the sound, the M80 kind of gives you that straight away without having to add that EQ afterwards. So when I want like a really, really snappy sound straight up, I think the M80 delivers that. Hi-hats, I go between the SM7B and a small diaphragm condenser, usually sometimes like the AKG C451B, or the Neumann KM184s. If I want a darker, mellower hi-hat sound, I opt for the SM7B straight away. Being a dynamic mic, it doesn't have as much detail on the top end, but if I want a really crispy, bright hi-hat sound, then I'll go for the condenser. Like you can see over here on my spot mic for the ride cymbal, that is the AKG C451B. It just gives me a really nice detailed top end for my ride cymbal. Talk about these drum overheads. At the moment, I actually have the KM184s from Neumann on overheads. And up until literally like the very last drum session that I did, I've been using the C414 XLS from AKG. They are a large diaphragm condenser and they sound amazing on drum overheads. But I'm actually vibing the KMs at the moment and kind of the detail that they bring to the cymbals straight away. I'm kind of liking that small diaphragm sound right now. Underneath the snare drum, if you can see that there, that is a right angled SM57. Just works, does the thing. For my kick out mic, I'm using the Audio-Technica AT4047 SV. Just a great thumpy sound that it delivers. Then I've got the beautiful Warm Audio WA44 right in front of the kit. And it just gets this really awesome thumpy low end from the bass drum, but you pretty much just get all of the kit in there and it just sounds sick. Then coming away from the kit, we have our room mics. Now I generally will push these back a little bit further, but just for setting up for the video, I kind of just plonk them here. And I'm using the R88 from AEA. This is a stereo ribbon microphone and it is just absolutely amazing on drum rooms. On overheads, it sounds killer too if you're just looking for that dark, lush drum sound. But this thing really does add so much life and character to the kit and just sounds so good. Now, directly below that is the Lewitt Pure Tube. This mic just sounds really great, and what you'd expect from a tube mic, it has that really nice, detailed, bright top end that isn't harsh. It's just awesome. So I've been loving this as a mono drum room. Sounds sick, but it's absolutely killer on acoustic guitar and vocals as well. And when you've got it powered up, that tube inside lights up and it looks absolutely sick. All right, let's move on to our guitar amp wall. Now, it is a humble wall. I don't own thousands of amps like some people, but it is enough for what I do, and it gives me 3 different voices of guitar sounds which cover a really wide range of genres. So the Vox is a hand-wired AC15, really awesome amp, very chimey, it's quite bright, it does that jangly thing, you know? And then we have the Fender Twin Reverb, which is just an absolutely stunning amp, but it's also a little bit darker, a bit more mid-range forward. Definitely doesn't do the chimey, bright kind of thing like the Vox. So that's great. It's a different voicing and gives me a different tone. Really cool for like just rock, country, bluesy stuff. Like it's a great all-rounder kind of amp. And as you can see, I have this one kind of ready to go. I've got the SM57 on here and the Warm Audio Fentone ribbon microphone. So I generally enjoy pairing something like that, like a dynamic and a ribbon together. And that gives me a pretty solid guitar sound straight up. Then next to that is a 2x12 orange closed back cab. I'm pretty sure it's got vintage 30s in it and you know, it sounds really great. And I'm using that mostly when people bring in heads and they don't have a good cab, they can run through that. But I also have a EVH 5150 Mark III, which is just a solid high gain amp, but in itself, it's pretty versatile too. It's got a really, really nice clean sound. And it also has a pretty good low gain sound, which is great for rock stuff, and then the high gain, which is just absolutely insane. There's the old Klark interface, rest in peace. I did get a new interface and I'll tell you about that in a minute. And a fun little fact with the wall of guitars here, you can see this little hole in the wall here where we're feeding cables through, so that runs under the house and then back round through behind my desk in the control room and pokes back out there. And I've got a guitar lead that's running through there, which you can just hook straight into an amp, and then you can plug into your pedal board or your guitar from the control room, which is really helpful. So that means I don't have to be running leads under the doorway back into the control room. Now, something that I've been doing lately since I've got the space in here is keeping some mics set up ready to go. So things like my tube mics, which involve more setup time, which can be kind of annoying when you're trying to do things quickly. You're like, oh, I just won't bother getting a tube mic out and setting up the power supply and everything, because it does add time to the process, and sometimes when you're recording, you just want to do things fast. So my mindset is keeping this stuff out ready to go, and that way that isn't a hindrance anymore. So I've got my Lauten Audio Eden, just absolutely stellar tube microphone with 3 voicings. It's just like a beast, an all-rounder, can do everything, it's amazing. And then I've got my Telefunken TF51, which is this super warm but also very airy tube condenser microphone, which just sounds amazing. It's very much a nod to the classic Telefunken 251. So as you can see, I'm just keeping all of these tube mics and cases out here ready to go. Okay, so leaving our guitars, let's head over to our kind of makeshift vocal booth over here. And basically, this is a lounge turned on its side, an old futon. And it actually just works really well as a baffle, and it's, you know, the right color for the room and the treatment. So I thought, hey, I'm not using this futon anymore. Let's just take the legs off it and use it as a bit of a vocal booth baffle, and it's done pretty well. And next to it, this is just some old paneling that I made when I first started recording music. I've had these forever. They're just like that cheap sound foam, you know, whatever. It's nothing special, but just some panels on the side. Basically just, you know, are helping a little bit with the reflections. It's not really doing heaps, but it does help. And then on the back of that, just to stop reflections, I've stuck some of the thicker broadband sound foam on the back that I had laying around, just because when you're sitting over here at the kit, there's just this big flat wall over here. So it's just to stop that reflection happening. But anyway, let's go check out this vocal booth. So I'll walk you in and show you what's back here. Very cozy in here with the camera. It's hard to kind of display what we're looking at, but basically you can stand here and face the mic and you can sing, and it's just very boxed in with treatment. It actually just sounds pretty cool in here, nice and dead space. I've got the Lauten Atlantis back here, absolutely amazing vocal microphone, and honestly I use this like 95% of the time, and it just works on pretty much every voice. Absolutely stunning vocal microphone. Double pop filter on there at the moment. Maybe you've heard me talk about that trick, but great way of just killing plosives, but it's also a great way of stopping vocalists getting too close to the microphone. So you can say, hey, if you're gonna creep up, you can creep up on this one, but it stops them getting right up and getting that big boomy proximity effect. A bit too small of a space to convey with this camera, but it is cool. And I've tracked vocals out in this space as well, and they sound great too. So if I want a really dry, dead vocal sound, I'll put them in that little booth over there. And then if I want a bit more liveliness, then they can come stand out here on the rug and sing their heart out here. But either way, it's been great. Sounds good. So that pretty much concludes the tour of the live room and everything that I'm using in here. Very happy with how this space turned out. So this used to be a garage. You can imagine a car used to be parked here. Now it is an awesome space to make music in. And a fun little feature, yes, there is a double door here, so we can shut this, and then we can shut this. So it makes such a massive difference. The 2 doors just stops a lot more sound traveling through into the control room. It's really good. All right, let's go check out the control room. So I'm going to squeeze back against the corner here and try and show you the space, but it feels awesome in here. You can fit a couple of people in here, no issues. It feels really comfortable. My last room was a little bit smaller and it used to just bug me. I feel super comfortable in this room. Absolutely love working in here. So couch for the clients. We've also got a little box on the floor down here. So this is just a little box from Fosse Audio, and it's basically just a headphone sharing box. Basically, you just put your input into it and then you've got 5 outputs for headphones. Just handy to have something like that ready for clients to be able to put some headphones on if you need to turn your monitors off, or you just want to give them some headphones so they can listen along or do some tracking with. So having that next to the couch is super helpful. So over here is like the keyboard station, literally just one keyboard, but this is the Arturia Keylab 88. Awesome MIDI controller. Like the keys feel so good, feels so real. The weighted feeling is amazing. If you're going to be using keys for MIDI, absolutely get weighted keys. It makes all of the difference for the expression and the feel of the playing. And then a couple of headphones ready for people to grab and use. The WA Headrooms are actually a pretty good set of headphones. I like using them, and the clients don't have anything bad to say about them. They sound great. We've got the classic DT770s. just a classic. Everyone knows that they work really well. And then we also have the ATH M50X, another just classic studio headphone. So 3 solid sets of headphones, anyone can grab them and use them. They're there ready to go. A couple of guitar pedals that I don't have at home for yet. So a couple of warm audio pedals. You're gonna see a video on that pretty soon. Great sounding guitar pedals, really like them. Then over here is my Sansamp bass driver, just a classic bass sound. Like if you're tracking bass, you gotta have a Sansamp in your studio. Like it's just one of those things. Like the Sansamp sound is the bass sound, you know, if you know, you know. So I'm always using that. It's got a parallel out as well for just the clean DI, so you can get that cool Sansamp sound, but also track your clean DI at the same time. Absolutely awesome. And they're phase aligned too. So sometimes if you have a DI before a bass pedal and then you run into that and you're taking the DI signal as well as the bass preamp signal, sometimes one of those is going to be out of phase. So you have to flip them. But what I found with the Sansamp bass driver, when you take the parallel out, they're already in phase. So I really like that about it as well. Now at the top here is my old faithful X Touch control surface, which I haven't used since getting the Raven. So if you don't know what the Raven is, it's that touchscreen in the middle of the desk just there. For those wondering, it is a great control surface though. So if you're interested in getting one of these, you've been thinking about it, I have a full on demo showcasing how it works and what you can do with it. I'll put that in the link below as well. You should definitely check it out because it is a cool piece of gear. All right, we're getting to the fun stuff, the rack gear. So this is my Sidecar. I set this up not too long before we packed up and moved here. And this is just like some cool pieces of gear. Hey, up the top here, I've got my Audioscape Dcomp. I absolutely love this on drums. When I want kind of a darker kind of drum sound, because it does mellow out the top end a little bit, but it does that really cool smashy sound too, like fast attack, fast release as a parallel. Oof, this thing sounds absolutely killer. If you use it on a mix bus too, just gently, like it gives it this really cool saturated sound. Just have to be kind of gentle with it. It is a little bit of a tricky one to dial in because the input is pretty sensitive. So cool piece of gear. Definitely love it on drums though. Same with this, WA76D2. I've absolutely loved using this as a parallel compression on drums for that 1176 sound. It sounds really cool. And so I do a bit of hybrid mixing. I don't do it for every track because recall on hardware can be, you know, a bit of a pain. So it really depends on the project. If I feel like it's going to benefit from me using hardware on it, then I will use this as a drum bus parallel compression, or even just printing some sounds through it as well. It's a great sounding 1176 with heaps of cool features. Again, I've done a review for this, so I'll put a link to that in the description below as well if you want to check out the WA76D2. Really cool dual channel 1176 compressor. The Audioscape 76A, like just an awesome compressor, sounds killer on electric guitars, sounds pretty cool on bass, sounds awesome on vocals. And that's probably where I use it the most, on vocals. And particularly if I want to kind of give the vocal like a little bit of edge, make it kind of stand out in the mix, this gives it that kind of cool mid-range grit, which I really love and is what, you know, the Blue Stripe is known for. So absolutely great sounding piece of gear. I love Audioscape gear. I think they just do an amazing job with their recreations and what they do with them. Furman power supply, you know, it's one of those things you got to have to hook everything up. It keeps everything neat and tidy. It's got the overload protection, but honestly, in my opinion, it's probably just an overpriced power board. But, you know, it does its thing. It does the job it needs to do. Down the bottom is the Klark Teknik third dimension BBD 320. Now, I don't know if I've shown this or talked about this at all on the channel, but these things are so cheap, and I picked one up earlier this year to have a bit of fun with, and I've been using it in my mixes, and I actually want to do a video showing you how I'm using this piece of gear because it's so cheap. Like everyone can have one of these, and that whole Roland dimension sound is so good. It doesn't sound exactly like it. I've watched heaps of comparisons, and you know, the Klark Teknik doesn't really compare to the original, but it does its own thing, which is really cool anyway. So with gear like that, if you can look past the fact of like, it's not a one-to-one, it's not exactly it, but it does something cool anyway, you can get yourself a great piece of gear for a fraction of the price. But sorry, if you're wondering what that is, it's basically Bucket Brigade Chorus. So it's a stereo chorus unit basically, and you can use it on vocals, guitars, you can use it on the full mix. It's really cool, and it can add this cool dimension to your sound. It can add some stereo width. Like, it's a fun unit. Got a couple more spaces down the bottom, but no gear yet. So hopefully we'll fill that out at some point. So next to that is my workstation. So a custom built desk that I built with my dad. and it turned out really cool. It's stood the test of time as well. This thing's probably getting on now, maybe 10 years, 9 years old, and it still is doing a great job for me. I based the design off of the Argosy dimensions for one of their desks, and then we just kind of customize it to make it work for doing a DIY thing at home. Plenty of room for rack gear, which is really cool, and it is pretty much just kitted out. I've got my Furman power supply units like we had over in that one there underneath the desk. So under here and here, there's the power supply for those. So I have to kind of bend down and turn those off and on if I want to ever power everything off, but just to make a bit more room for the racks up the top. All right, let's talk about the gear in this desk. At the front here, we've got the WA76, which is basically the same thing as the WA76D2, but this is the original. So I've had this for a really long time, single unit for just using on mono sources. I use it while tracking bass all the time. Sounds great on vocals. Just a solid 1176 clone. So it's a revision D version, and basically the Rev D adds this kind of like thickness to a sound. It adds some like harmonic content which enriches the sound, which is really cool. If you got a sound that's like a little bit thin or lacking character, this can make it sound a bit more interesting for sure. So in our left rack up the top here, got the SSL Bus Plus. Pretty much use this on nearly every mix as my bus compressor. This thing sounds absolutely killer. It's got so many bells and whistles about it. There's just so much you can do with it. And I've been thinking about doing a video on it, but there's already so many great videos on this compressor out there. But you know, maybe I'll give my spin on it at some point. But I absolutely love this as a mixed bus compressor. It's just awesome unit. Below the SSL Bus Plus is my Audioscape Opto. Absolutely love optical compression on bass and vocals. That is just two places where it absolutely excels. Not that you can't use it on other things, but that is the main places where I use this. I would say 95% of the time I'm tracking vocals through this. It sounds so good. You can compress vocals pretty hard and they still sound great. It's just an awesome unit. I used to always run through an 1176 while tracking, but I've found since I've gotten this that vocals sound so good coming through the Opto, and then I might add 1176 afterwards with a plugin in my DAW, and that pretty much is enough compression for a great vocal sound. So that might seem a little bit backwards because I know a lot of people go for the 1176 first, but it just works. Tracking vocals through this just sounds great, and then you can add that, you know, aggression and the forwardness with the 1176 after, and it's amazing. Couple of preamps, two great River pre's. These are basically Neve 1073 style preamps. Really quiet preamps, really low self noise. I love these for my ribbon microphones, and anytime I need to track a quiet source, I would definitely use the Great Rivers because they don't add much of their own noise to the source. Got a couple of 500 series SSL 6 preamps. These are kind of like mini channel strips because you get the ability to add a high pass filter. You can add some EQ, like there's a high and a low shelf, but they can also be bells as well. It's got a bit of compression as well. It can be a high Z input. Like, they're really cheap and they sound great. So I don't know, if you're looking for some sweet SSL preamps, definitely don't sleep on these because I love them. I've been using them on my snare drum top and bottom. Next up, Rupert Neve Designs 542 Tape Emulators. Had these a really long time now, and they are just really cool for adding color to a sound. Now, places I like to use them are maybe like on the kick and snare while tracking. Adding the silk to it can be really cool. Even if I want to make them really thick, then adding that tape emulation and saturation is great as well. I've used them while tracking vocals. They've been really cool for adding a bit of color to the source. But generally, I'll put these on my mix bus and I will just run a really low blend, because the effect is really, really obvious. It adds a huge low end bump to the sound. So I'm very careful with that. Like the blend at 10 and 20% is enough for me usually, like because it's such a dramatic effect on a full mix. And if you use these, it's always better to put them on the mix earlier and then mix into them. The red silk's really great if you just want to add almost like a bit of aggression and presence to the sound. Like it really does kind of brighten it up in a cool way. And the blue silk really gives it like this low, mid, mellow kind of sound, like it softens it a little bit. So there's kind of two options there. If you feel like your mix needs to just be a bit more chill, go with the blue silk. If you need to add a bit more excitement, you can add the red silk. It's really cool. I would say I have a love-hate relationship with these because sometimes I'll have them on the mix and then I bypass them and I'm like, yeah, I like the mix better without them. And then sometimes I add them and I'm like, hey, that was the missing piece. So I get really torn at times deciding whether I want to use that on a mix or not. The Elysia X filter is just a great clean EQ. Love using this on my mixes just to kind of fine tune them, tidy them up, and get them sounding a little bit more polished. The SSL Fusion down the bottom here, this as well sits on my mix bus. It's kind of like a great multi-effects processor for just almost mastering your song in a sense. Like it just adds this kind of like final detail and quality to your mixes. So you can do a high pass filter, you can add some saturation with the vintage drive, which is really cool. You can add a low and a high shelf for just if your mix needs a little bit of thump or a little bit of brightness added to it, or if it needs less of those things. You can chill out the top end with the high frequency compressor, which is really nice. And then you can also add some stereo width, which always sounds great. And there's a transformer button too, which lets you add this kind of silky top end and thickness to the low end. It's cool. Sometimes it's too much, but sometimes it's just right. So awesome unit on the mix bus, use it all the time. Definitely that secret sauce on a mix. So that's kind of like my outboard mix bus chain. I've got the Elysia into the tape, and then we go up into the SSL Bus Plus, and then into the SSL Fusion, and then back into Logic. So as you guys know, I'm a Logic Pro user, which means I'm a Mac user, which I have the Mac Studio with the M2 chip in it, and it's super powerful processor, works great. And I'm using the Apple Studio Display as my monitor. It's just an awesome looking monitor, especially for video editing. The colors and everything are just right on it. It's hard to find a monitor as good as that, but they do hit you with the price tag. And then on the desk in front of me, I have my Raven MTI Max, which is a 27-inch multi-touch control surface. Super cool piece of gear from Stephen Slate Audio. And I'll put a link in the description below if you want to check out my demo that I've done for that. You can learn all about that. But basically you can get multiple fingers on here moving faders at the same time. It's really cool. It's a lot of fun to work on. Now, to a lot of people's dismay and to a lot of people who like to jest on the channel a lot, I'm still using my Yamaha HS8 monitors. Now I know there's a lot of love for these and there's a lot of hate for these monitors. And you know, people think that you can't mix on them and you can't master music on them. And those people are ludicrous because you absolutely can. You can mix and master on any half decent set of monitors as long as you get to know how they sound in your environment. You can go and buy a $10,000 set of monitors, and if you don't know what they're supposed to sound like, you're still going to do bad mixes. You have to learn your monitoring. That is the biggest thing to monitoring, is learning it. Now, I am going to upgrade my monitoring at some point in the future. That is definitely one of my next things that I'm going to be looking into. But that being said, I'm still happy working on my HS8 monitors. I don't really have any big issue in it, but I am keen to explore monitoring and see what else is up there as we move up into the higher range of monitoring. And you know, maybe I'll find that I still prefer these, but you know, you don't know until you give it a go. But again, anyone looking for like half decent set of monitors, the HS8, the HS series are a great series. No matter what people say, I've worked on these for like the last 10 plus years and they're fine. They're great to work on. Got one of the little Aventone mix cubes here, just a mono speaker that sounds terrible, which is great for listening to your mixes on and just hearing problems. So it's just a little 5-inch or a 4-inch speaker. And yeah, it just sounds horrible, but it reveals all of the nastiness in the mid-range. So it's really cool to just do a quick listen and go, hey, that sounds pretty bad. I can tweak this and that, and then get your mix sound a little bit better. For my monitoring setup, I'm using the PreSonus Monitor Station V2, which runs from my interface into this, so I control my main set of monitors, my Yamaha HS8s. But from that, I'm also sending out my headphone mix into the live room. So from here I can use the talkback and chat to people, and I can set the overall, you know, signal level that's being fed to their headphone amp in that room. But then I can also switch between their headphone cue mix and also what we're hearing in here as well. So if I quickly want to just show them how it's sounding in the current mix, I can show them that, and then I can jump back to their own personal headphone mix for them. As well as this is how I'm sending a headphone signal to that box by the lounge so that people can hook into that and also listen through headphones when they're just chilling on the lounge. And it also allows me to plug in some headphones when I want to switch off the monitors and just monitor straight out of headphones as well. You can set up multiple sets of speakers and then you can A/B them. You can have multiple sets of speakers running at the same time. I rate it. Yes, that is a Universal Audio Apollo Twin, and I pretty much have just been using this for Universal Audio plugins, and then I've been using it to record my vocals for videos. So I have two interfaces running. So I'll be capturing the sound through my interface for any tutorials or demos that I'm doing, and then I'll be tracking my voice through this into GarageBand in the background while I'm running Logic to do all of my other stuff. So a bit of an elaborate little setup there. But I bought this in case I was going to do any kind of like location recording, but it hasn't ever really happened. So it's just kind of been sitting here, and I've mainly used it for the point of being able to use Universal Audio plugins until they then brought out their native versions, which you no longer need the hardware for. So maybe this is turning into a paperweight on the desk at some point. Okay, and then our right-hand side rack, we have the Universal Audio 4710D. So this is the Twinfinity Preamps, and there is 4 of them here, which is really cool. And basically I picked this up on a whim at a sale at one of our local music stores here. They had this crazy sale running. It was just sitting on a box on the floor. No one was looking at it, and it was basically like half price. So I just didn't go in there thinking I was going to buy one of these, but I just thought, hey, that's too good to pass up. So I just grabbed it. And these sound great. I use them on drums all the time, and I've used them on vocals and pretty much anything. They're good sounding preamps. They have built-in compression as well. There's an 1176 built into each of the channels. I find it a little bit gimmicky. It's hard to dial in just right because you have to drive the signal so much to hit the compressor. Like it's okay, but I wouldn't buy it for the fact that it has these compressors built into it. And most of the time, you're probably going to end up switching them off because they're just too hard to get sounding just right. But they're a cool preamp. You've got this little knob at the front, which lets you switch between a tube sound and a transistor sound. And they've got all the things you need on the front. The phase flip, you got your low cut filter, you've got a pad, lots of good stuff. I believe this one is the digital version too, so it can be ran as an interface, but I've never needed to do that. Now below that, we've got the SA4000. This is the Stam Audio SSL clone of their bus comp, and you know, it sounds great. I was using this as my main bus compressor for years. Sounds really good. Only recently switched it out for the SSL Bus Plus, for, you know, the real deal. The real SSL has replaced the clone, but honestly, this thing sounds great. No issues with it. I've used it as my drum bus compressor or even as a parallel compressor. Sounds great. Below that is my main set of preamps, the Phoenix Audio DRS8 V2. Really nice sounding preamps. Again, these are based on that 1073 kind of sound, and they deliver that. You know, they're a nice, warm, rich sound, and when you push the gain on them, they definitely get a lot of harmonic content added to them as well. But when you have the gain a little bit lower too, they can deliver a really nice, clean, detailed sound. Each channel has the ability to use each of these features independently. So it's got a pad, 48 volt phantom power, we've got a phase flip, we've got a high pass filter, and there's also a mute, which I guess is handy if you're using this in a live situation. Now I did mention that my interface died recently. I had the Klark 8 Pre-X for quite a few years. Really cool piece of gear with a really fast round trip latency, which I realized matters a lot to me. So when I was searching for a new interface, I was hoping to get something with a decent fast round trip, but also without breaking the bank, because it broke right at the time of building the new studio. So obviously budget was a little of an issue. But the SSL 18 just dropped very recently, and so a lot of people were raving about it, so I thought, hey, let's just give it a go and try it out. And so far, really impressed with this unit. It is a great interface, and it's covering all of my needs really well. And I've also paired that with the Alpha 8. But basically, both of these units are covering all of my needs for getting my signals into the computer, as well as out of the computer for any stuff that I am sending back out into hardware. The routing capabilities on the SSL 18 are awesome. And basically just connecting the Alpha 8 by ADAT allows me to expand on the SSL 18 because you only have 8 inputs, but adding that gives me 16. But then I'm also adding my Octopre up the top here so that I can now run 24 channels, which is something new. I've only ever really had 16. So expanding that a little bit is really cool because it does allow me to have more mics out when I'm doing bigger projects. It also gives me more in-out as well, so I can send more processing out to outboard gear all at the same time and then have it running back in. One thing that's really cool about the SSL 18 is it has a talkback mic that's independent of all of these channels. So you can hook in an XLR for a talkback, And then you can also route that into your DAW through a different input that's unrelated to these 8 preamps. So essentially you can have 9 inputs. And I've been using that mic as a bit of a crush mic on drums because it also implements that LMC SSL talkback mic compression, which is super aggressive and crazy, which everyone loves to use on smashing drums. And it's really cool. So you basically get this extra sneaky little feature, extra little channel that you can use for a special effect like that, which is really cool. The round trip latency on the SSL 18 is unfortunately not quite as good as the Klark 8 Pre-X, but it's still good enough to use without feeling like there's a big latency there. I don't think most people notice it at all. Even myself, when I have the buffer at 32 in Logic, I don't think that I can pick up on any kind of latency when I'm doing a round trip. So as long as your computer can kind of handle running a buffer that low without kind of adding any crackling or popping, then you're pretty good for round trip and using plugins. I think it's like a 7 millisecond round trip, whereas the Klark was like a 2 millisecond round trip. It's pretty crazy. But the Klark was Thunderbolt and this is USB-C. And underneath that, we've got my 2 patch bays, which is where pretty much everything is meeting up. Every piece of gear in here is being hooked into this patch bay. All of the processing over here, all of these guys, all of that stuff in the sidecar, everything is coming to the patch bay. And from here, you can connect pieces together creatively. You can, join up EQs, compressors, you can stack them all, and then you can assign them to the input that's going to go into these interfaces as well. So for example, I can take a signal from my Great River and then I can put that into my Pultec, which I'm about to show you. And then I can take that and then I can pop that over here into my Audioscape Opto and I can just keep going and stacking stuff together. And then I can just be like, hey, I'm just going to bring this back in on my ADAT channel number 4, which is my 4th channel on the Alpha 8. So a patch bay is like almost really essential when you have a ton of gear because it gives you all of this ability to creatively route and use your gear in any way that you please. These are the Samson S Patch Plus patch bays. They are awesome. Absolutely love them. Some patch bays you have to pull apart and rearrange the cards inside them for how you want them to work. These ones have little switches on the front which lets you switch between through, normal and half normal, which is super handy just to be able to do that right at the front. Down the bottom here at the front of my desk I have the EQ PWA. This is the Warm Audio Pultec clone. And this thing sounds great. I've used it a ton of times on vocals for just adding a bit of top end. Use it on the kick to just do that classic kick trick where you boost the low end and cut the low end at the same time, and it cleans out all of that muddy mid-range and it just leaves you with this big thumpy low end, and then you can boost some top end and get this nice click. It's awesome on those kind of things, especially on bass as well. Just brings out that big bottom end of the bass. Really cool piece of gear, great compressor. And yeah, I've had this forever and I think I will keep it forever. It's just gonna sit here and be a useful tool in the studio. Something I wanted to do with this setup was just to have things ready and available to use really quickly. So right next to me here is all of my guitars ready to just grab and start tracking with, which is just great. When you want to lay a sound down, you don't want to go digging through cases. You don't want to have to go to another room to find your guitar or whatever. It's just good to have this stuff right here. You can grab it and get going. So you'll see I'm a bit of a Fender fanboy. I've got mainly Fender guitars here, which I've got the Tom DeLonge Strat, which is a fairly new addition to the studio. Just solid rock sounds, pop punk, like it does it. It's got one knob on the front, no tone knob, no selectors. It just is what it is and it sounds great. Next to that is just an American Standard Strat, so just a standard Stratocaster. The next to that is an American Standard Telecaster. So if you've got a Strat, you need a Tele, you got to cover all those sounds, and between those two guitars you can do so many different genres and sounds. It's really good. Then we've got 2 banjo type things here. One is a banjo, so it's a 6-string guitar basically that sounds like a banjo. You don't have to learn how to play a banjo, you can just get that banjo kind of sound out of it. And it's just in a regular standard tuning. And then next to it is an actual banjo, which actually sounds more authentic and gives you that real plucky banjo sound. If I'm working on a project and I have the time to really spend kind of feeling out some parts on the banjo, then I will do it on the actual thing because it just sounds more authentic. But if time's a bit of an issue and I don't really know my way around what I'm trying to do on the banjo, then I'll grab the banjo and just kind of get a cool sound down quickly, and it does the thing. And then we've got 2 options for bass. We've got a precision bass and also a jazz bass, so also Fenders. and they both just sound great. Two different tones. The Precision gives you more of that kind of mid-range driven. It's just a classic bass sound. Probably the most recorded bass sound in any studio. Like, that is the bass sound that most people go for. But then the Jazz is just another one to have around, which has a deeper, fatter low end straight away. Then my acoustic guitar is an SRS 808 from Maton. Just a really great all-rounder sounding acoustic. Just works well for a lot of genres of music. It just sounds really nice. You've probably heard it a few times on the channel. I also have a Klark, but that one is in a case upstairs somewhere. I just realized the other day that I hadn't brought it out. But the reason being, I need to get a dual stand for my acoustic guitar. So I will probably grab one of those pretty soon so I can get that guitar hanging down here as well. I also have a mandolin tucked away somewhere in a case. You can probably just see it back there hiding away. But the idea here is to have a lot of different sounds and tools that are ready to grab so that I can just get creating quickly. So this is kind of fun. This is my pedal board, and I've got a bunch of pedals on here that I've kept for a long time because they really cover a lot of the sounds that I like to create. And I haven't really felt the need to update this. Like, it really just does what I need it to do. I've got a Boss tuner, sick as overdrive, tube screamer. We've got the Sweet Tea from JHS, which is kind of like the Moonshine pedal with, is it an Angry Charlie or something like that? And it basically does like that Marshall distortion sound on this side here. And then we've got the Pog, which is a really cool low octave and a high octave pedal. So you can get this really crazy sound going on, adding that stuff to a signal. If you just want to fatten something up, you can add a little bit of that sub octave. If you want to make a lead line pop, you can add a bit of that top octave. It's cool. I love that thing. And then classic DD7, this thing's ancient now, but you know, if you just need a little bit of delay, it does the thing. And then we've got the Blue Sky, just a really nice reverb. It's cool. JHS Emperor, just a little chorus pedal. It sounds great, but I think I actually prefer the WAC one. I just need some time to kind of rework my pedal board to include those warm audio pedals I showed you before, because a couple of those sound sick. Now you can see before my tuner, I have my DI set up ready to go. So I'll plug into this, and that way I can get a clean signal of the guitar before it hits the pedal board. So fun little thing here, from the output of the pedal board, we are running into this little adapter over here, which is then being fed through the wall, which behind my desk you can see there's this little box back here. So that's where all the cabling is going, which is then being fed under the house. And then that loops back around into the live room. And so that's how I'm getting my guitar hooked up into my amp, and I can keep my pedal board in here, and I don't have wires running all across the floor. I love that. So a big goal of the space for me is that I really want to make everything quick and accessible. There's still some setup that I need to do to get it even more fine-tuned, but that's the idea, that you can just quickly plug something in. It's already kind of half hooked up. You just go turn the amp on, the mic's already there, you plug your guitar in and you start tracking. So that pretty much concludes the studio tour. Thanks heaps for watching, guys, and thanks so much for supporting this channel. And if you have any questions about any of the gear, any of the setup here, just drop them in the comments below and I'll do my best to get back to you on that stuff. And if you want to support this channel in any way, you can definitely check out the link in the description below that goes to my website. Got a bunch of drum samples and mixing courses over there. Grabbing any of that stuff really helps support the time that goes into making content for this channel. And as I said before, if you're keen to watch the full process of how we built the studio space in here, then I'll have links to those in the description below. But otherwise, you can check out that first video coming up next.